Hey everybody, Harry here to talk about the Supreme Court report about the leak investigation in the Dobbs case. And we are here with Jessica Levinson, who is the director of Loyola Law School's Public Service Institute and a good friend of the podcast. Hi, Jessica. Thanks for being with me.
Thanks for having me back. You know I love talking all things Supreme Court.
And we have an unusual thing, Supreme Court, that happened. It's kind of hot off the presses. So there you go. Give us the skinny, as if you're the reporting correspondent, breathlessly outside the steps of 1 First Street Northeast.
The running of the interns, like when the big decisions come out.
Exactly.
So the news today is that the investigation into the leak of the Dobbs decision is basically complete for now, and that they were not able to identify who leaked that draft opinion, that they were able to identify some failures in the court's procedures, that they think that the court should basically update its practices, but they were not, by a preponderance of the evidence, able to say, yes, we think it is this justice or this clerk. And
let me stop you right there. It's clear they interviewed some 92 people. They said, but did they interview the justices?
So you're right. I was assuming that they would have spoken to the justices, and I don't know that they actually did.
I kind of doubt it. It doesn't say so in the report by the marshal, and I think that would have been a little funky, and I can imagine a couple who might have bristled a bit. What do you think? Right. So your best guess is they probably didn't interview the justices, which is interesting because at least right now in the tongue wagging Twitter sphere, there is a justice that seems to be the focus of some people's suspicion, based on, we should be clear, essentially next to nothing. But back to the investigation. So it's handled, first of all, by the marshal of the Supreme Court, who is a law enforcement officer, but not the FBI, not guns drawn and heavy-handed and bright lights. What did they do, and is there any reason to fault the thoroughness of the investigation?
So I'm not an expert on these types of investigations, but in looking at the document, it looks like it was fairly thorough in the sense that they did basically a forensic accounting, for lack of a better term, that they went through all of the data available, that they said they went through the computer systems, that they, I think, talked to many of the employees and clerks about their text messages, and they said they weren't able to find from that forensic IT investigation who was ultimately responsible for the leak. What they said is that they didn't think it was a hack, that based on going through the forensic IT, that they don't think that somebody broke into the system. They also talked about the fact that they interviewed dozens, I think 97 people, and some of them more than once.
Yeah.
And it sounds fairly thorough. I know that also the former head of the Department of Homeland Security for George W. Bush actually reviewed this particular investigation. And he said, yeah, it sounds thorough to me. So I'm not in a position really to say if it sounds thorough to him. No, it doesn't sound thorough to me.
Michael Chertoff does a little page, says, I can't think of anything else they should have done. As you say, 97 employees, 126 formal interviews. I'd be interested to know who which of the 29 people were interviewed more than once. But at least for clerks, at the end, they had to sign, something under penalty of perjury, saying I had nothing to do with the leak. Interestingly, many clerks, I think, so they wouldn't be committing perjury, copped to having discussed it with their spouses. Or maybe even others, and which is verboten. When I clerked, there was a very big abortion decision that year, and the Chief Justice admonished us, you can't even discuss it with your spouses. Hey everyone, we're taking a quick break to ask you to take a second to like and subscribe. It's a quick thing that really helps the show. Thanks, and back to the video. You're right that they say it's kind of, if more information comes our way. It's a 20-page report by the Marshal, and it just feels to me like we're kind of done here, right? Maybe someone will give an anonymous tip. It was justice. Maybe I'll stop there. But I think we think that it kind of closes the books on it. Was that your sense as well?
My feeling is that this is done until there's another book where maybe it's Bob Woodward's final book,
Yeah.
or it's whoever leaked it, it's their end of their career and they want everybody to know this was them. Or it's the Deep Throat moment where Deep Throat
Right.
says, yes, it was me. But I think for the short term, this is done. And I think the court wants to put this behind them. I mean, Harry, you clerked on the Supreme Court. You would know this better than anybody else. But my sense is that they want to say over and over again that this was a horrible breach, that this never should have happened. This is not how we conduct ourselves. And now let's move on to basically changing the law and not thinking about this leak.
I agree with you in that, and it's noteworthy that they even put out this 20-page report. I think it was to sort of give some, final product for people to have a full stop and supposedly close the books. Most people on the podcast, well, we're kind of split in our demographics, but for those who don't know, so Deep Throat's a great analogy. He was the deputy director of the FBI. Nobody knew it. He was the source for Woodward and Bernstein in Watergate. He would put up a plant in his balcony when they wanted to talk. And very late in his career, he revealed who he was. But, it sort of depends on who it may be. I don't see it being revealed if it's a voluntarily anyway, if it's a justice. But I can say this, and this is nothing special you don't need to have clerked on the Supreme Court. Attending junior high school is enough. There's gotta be a lot of tongue wagging and surmises there about who they think it is and who they think it isn't. An interesting aspect of the report, she did, the Marshall Curley, want to make clear we weren't just looking at forensics and stuff. We tried to have some sophistication. In particular, they considered in the possibility who would do this and why. Would there be political strategy? Because there's still the very basic question. As I recall, actually, very early on, you were early on the train of saying maybe it was a conservative here. Right? Give us your sort of initial thoughts, which I guess now will be undisturbed, of the kind of person who might have leaked it and why.
Yes, now I can claim potential victory in my thoughts because we'll never know for sure. At least in the short
Exactly.
term, we won't
Everybody
know for
was
sure.
right. Yeah.
Everybody was right and everybody was wrong.
Right.
I thought that it was probably a conservative clerk because I thought that leaking the draft opinion did a couple of things. One, I thought it solidified the vote count so that you were going to keep the conservative majority together so that you would overturn Roe v. Wade, and it would shame anybody like potentially Justice Kavanaugh into not changing his vote and maybe joining Chief
Keep
Justice John
Roberts
Roberts.
from peeling off Kavanaugh, basically, because it would be clear that he had done so, and that would look craven or something. Yeah.
Exactly. I also thought it kind of lessened the blow of the decision in the sense that it was like this slow moving train, and we got adjusted to it actually for quite a while before the decision actually came out. And I thought that by kind of diffusing or dispersing the ultimate bomb, so to speak, it was advantageous, even though it was a huge deal when Roe was overturned. Many of us had known it was coming. We basically came to terms with it. And I don't think it was as big a deal for the midterms as potentially it might have been if it had really caught people by surprise at the end of June. I still think that month in the summer was politically advantageous for conservatives.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. There's nothing like seeing it in black and white to it's sort of put in two different buckets the oh shit moment. They really did it. Okay, so the court now, in theory, thinks it's closed. What is there any lasting effect on the court's status and prestige, and standing in the public of the leak? Does it now just kind of go away? What is the aftermath of the report as you see it?
Such a good question. And, I clerked on the district court level, and I just can't imagine this happening.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine an opinion being leaked, particularly one that everybody is waiting for. And it is such an unbelievable breach. And I think it's hard to convey to people who maybe have worked in companies or at stores or in other places where you're supposed to keep things confidential, but maybe you don't quite.
Yeah.
It is such an unbelievable upheaval and, again, breach
Yeah,
of
let
trust.
me just stop you there to say, amen. It's just, you can barely imagine. It would have been earth-shaking if somebody had kind of whispered something, but they took the opinion and actually served it up there. That's just, such a capital offense you can't imagine.
It truly is. There's no way to describe
So
how much
brazen.
it
Amazing.
undermines. Yeah. And so obviously, if we're aware of that, then the justices are aware of that, and the clerks are aware of that, and the court employees are aware of that. And I think they just treat each other differently for a while. I think it's a more suspicious atmosphere for a while. There's no way to avoid that this happened. But ultimately, this is a court that I think wants to very aggressively change our legal system in this country. And so we're talking about this today, but we're going to have a lot of really big opinions to talk about in the next few months. And that ultimately will take over the conversation, I think, more than the leak.
It's a really good point. Okay, well, Jessica Levinson, thanks so much for being with us as both correspondent and analyst and clerk. And always good to get your insights about the court. More is probably coming. Well, maybe not, but if there is, we'll be back to discuss it. Until then, thank you and talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.